Hey guys, it's Peggy, Dean of thepigeonletters.com, and this video we are going to be going over this darling cactus in Procreate. You're going to follow along and you're going to create the coolest three-dimensional depth ever. So let's get into it. Alright, so I have a canvas open here. I just use 9 by 12. Use whatever you want. And I'm actually going to be using a new brush set that's new to me, and I'm really excited to share it. Of course, you can follow along with any brushes that you want to, but FYI, I am using the Rough and Raw brush set that is on Design Cuts. I've linked it so that you can head over there directly, but I'll show you. So the thing that I love about it is that it's got liners and shaders and like areas that, or brushes that get full coverage, but they're all textured. So I'm going to walk through what I'm using, but then of course they're all awesome. So anyway, so let's get into it. The first thing that you want to do is on your first layer, grab any color that you want. So I'm going to first work on my pot for this cactus, and it doesn't really matter what color you choose because you can always change it later. I'm choosing like a burnt orange kind of terracotta color. And I'm going to start with the, what one was it? The Rippleizer, I believe. Yeah. The reason why is because it has some texture on the sides, but works as a liner. So that's why I wanted to use this one. So to create my pot, I'm going to do each piece on a separate layer. And the reason, I'll show you why in a minute, and this is going to have, it's going to do with our shading. So the first thing that I want to do is I'm going to draw the base of the pot. It doesn't have to be perfect. If you want it to be super perfect, you can always hold to snap like that, but I like mine to look a little more organic. So, or like hand drawn. I just like the way that it looks. I'm not going to worry about the top here because I'm actually going to do something different with the top. But from there, I'm going to go to the color icon here and then drag and drop. And that's going to fill. And then I can take texture to it later with a clipping mask, which I'll show you. Okay, so what I'm going to do from here is select a new layer, and then I'm going to choose a new color that's just a little bit darker so I can actually see what I'm doing here. And I'm just going to create an oval, and you can make it perfect by holding it to snap, and then while you're still holding it, you can increase and decrease the size. So I am going to bring that to about here where the top of my first shape is in the middle, and then from there I'm going to create a circle inside of it. And for this top circle, let's make it a color that's a little bit lighter actually than your main shape, and then create a new layer and go much darker, and then create a circle inside of that. So there's two ways to do this. You could draw a circle inside of it. So basically I'm drawing the same-ish circle and then filling it, and then I can just drop that to the bottom so it's underneath, and then clean up this mess. So I could do it that way, or I can, this is a cool feature, sorry I had to turn my heater off. This is a cool feature of Procreate where you can use any layer as a reference. So if I click on this circle, I can select it and say reference, and then I can go to layer 3, which is my new one, and drag and drop, and it's only going to fill in that area because this was referenced. Just make sure that if you do that, to then turn your reference layer off so that you can work on your whole canvas again. Side note, a fun feature of that is like, let's say you do an entire illustration with outline and you just want to fill and then have like a blank area for your outline where it's white, then you can turn your outline off and it just holds that shape. So that's kind of a fun feature you can do. Okay, so from here, I'm going to create a layer underneath this one. So underneath my oval. So I'm going to go to the bottom layer and then click add, and it has my new layer. It's underneath that main circle. I'm going to change the color just so I can see what's going on, and I'm going to follow this line but then drop down like this. I guess I chose like a really similar color. Drop down again and then connect them and fill it. I'll change that color so we can actually see it. Okay. And then bring this over. Okay, so then we have the lip, if you will. Okay, so now that this is done, all of these are on separate layers. Why, you might be asking yourself. I will show you. Creative choice real quick. I'm going to elongate this just a little bit. All right. Whoops. And then I want to, first, before anything, I want to get these the colors that I actually want them to be. So I want the lip color to be the same as the orange here. The way I'm going to do this is I'm going to, I used one finger to select, to sample that color, so that's the color now. And then I'm going to go to this red layer. And yes, I could drag and drop, but a fun little trick, if you alpha lock layers, like let's say you're working on a whole bunch of them, if it's alpha locked, you can select that layer and then say fill layer, and it's going to fill with that color. So just a couple different ways I like to show, because I know that all of our workflows are really different, so this might really benefit you. Okay, so from here, this looks pretty basic, but we're going to make it pretty differentiating by using shading. So before I even get into the cactus, I'm going to shade this pot. Here's how. I'm going to go to the first layer and put a layer on top of it, and then to the new layer, I'm going to select it and say clipping mask. And now I'm going to use the fun textures with slightly different colors. So I have that color sampled. I can go in here and get that a lot lighter. And then I'm going to select a new brush, and I wanted to do the mono stamp first to show you what that's going to look like. So I can make that larger and then go through here, and you can see that it's pressure sensitive, which is a lot of fun. So if you're doing like a hard shadow, this is great for it because it has that nice smooth line. If you don't want that hard shadow and you want it to be more of a soft appearance, I also like this powdery brush, and that's going to look like this. So it's grainy, but it's fine. So I can add that in. I can make it a little bit larger so that this transition area, like you can color way out here and see how it's coming in. If you make it larger, you can color way out here. It's coming in like this. So play with those settings because it can really add a lot of interest to your pieces. And then you can also, something I like to do, like let's say I added that highlight, I can go in and I can get an even lighter color and then get it just at the edge. So I have like that main transition, and then just at the edge it's even brighter. I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to go darker now. So I'm going to sample that color. I'm going to bring it down darker, maybe right about here, and come in and do the same thing. So you don't have to have them be like the same width the whole way. You can have it be like, okay, this is focused on kind of in the front, and then this shadow is just on the side. So however you want to do that, basically they don't have to be perfectly even. And this shadow is not enough for me. I actually want to go darker than that. So I'm going to do the same technique where I brought that in, and then even less of a coverage, add this even darker shadow. You can make that a lot smaller and come in here and really add depth just toward the edge, which just adds even more interest. So like this one, I could come in, sample the lightest color I have, and then get even lighter, and just come in real close, make my brush small, and hit the edge for just like that oomph, basically. And then I want to create a shadow underneath the lip, and that is so that you can differentiate the differences here. So differentiate the differences. So you can see that's going to be too dark. So I'm going to go sample this orange and then grab a darker color and then come through here. And then I can come in with a little bit darker on this side. So see how what I'm doing is it's thinner, and then it gets a little bit thicker and a little bit darker as it goes to the right side, which is where my deepest shadow is. And then I'll grab that even darker color just for that edge and put it in there, and see how that is now looking a lot more cohesive, intentional. Another thing that I want to mention too is sometimes I'm not stoked about it, but I like the placement. So I'll sample the original color and I'll just go in, and I'll lighten some of it up. You can, so like this area, I like the way this is looking, so I don't want to do that too much, but basically just real lightly, wrong brush, real lightly go through and just soften it like that. So I'm going to do the same thing to the lip area. I don't know what it's called. I keep calling it a lip, but we don't know if that's what it is. Okay. So I'm going to do the same thing. Whoops. I need to apply a clipping mask. So new layer, clipping mask, and then work on that one. So get that lighter color in there. Maybe even a little bit lighter. There we go. And then lighter for the very edge, like so, and then maybe even a little bit lighter and smaller just for that edge right there. So see how that totally brings it to life. Same thing on this side, but darker. And then even darker. And then the last part here, where it gets nice and deep. Not that much. There. Okay, so now you have like what's looking very three-dimensional. I'm gonna leave, so you don't have to, I'm gonna actually leave most of the top part alone, other than I'm gonna highlight a couple of pieces. So I'm gonna go to that layer, create a new layer on top of it, apply a clipping mask, and then just highlight just like the front here. And that's about it. You can add a little bit of shadow elsewhere, just for dimension and texture, but otherwise I want to keep it the same. And then I'm going to do the same thing to the inside. You can wait to do this because you don't know where your cactus is going to sit. Like you might have a cactus that fills this entire area, but you don't really know that till you draw it and place things the way that you want to. You also might, so you can wait for that, or you can do it now. I'm going to do just to show you. So go to that layer, select a new layer on top of it, clipping mask, sample the color that's inside, go darker, and then like around this base here, see how that's really increasing that depth. So that's the idea. I'm going to leave it like that and then continue. So I'm going to group all this together now because I know this is my pot. So to do that, I'm going to select every layer and then not merge them together, but just select group. From there, I can collapse them and then create a new layer that's all on its own, and now I'm going to work on my cactus. So it's essentially the same idea. I'm going to grab a green. Any green that you want is great. And then I'm going to go back to my Rippleizer brush and create my cactus shape. So this can be round. It can be like your typical cactus that comes up like this. I'm just going to do a tall one like this, and then I'm going to create kind of a textured bottom as if the soil was as if it was tucked into the soil. I kind of want it to be thicker than that, so I'm going to bring it out a little bit, connect that, and fill it. Yeah, that looks fine. Okay, so from here, I want to create some depth. So to do that, I'm going to create a layer on top of it, select clipping mask, but I'm going to keep my brush the same and fill layers and add texture to them after the fact. So I'm going to create light on this side and depth, more darkness on this side, the same way that we did the first time. So I'm going to make this a little bit lighter. I'm going to add a line. And you can draw anywhere. It's on the canvas when it's a clipping mask. It's only going to apply to the layer beneath it. So that's the way the clipping mask works. So yeah, you get it. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing here and then make sure those are connected, and then I'm going to fill it. And then I'm going to do that again. Maybe sample this color and then go a little bit darker to come over on this side. I don't love this green, but I can change it. Connect them, come in like this. To recolor quickly, just a quick tip because I love giving these workarounds. What you can do is go to recolor. So if you go to your wand, recolor, I can hover over that area and then I can go to my color icon and then I can change it like live, basically. So that's one of the really nice features of the recolor tool versus like color dropping over and over and over, because you know that you're going to love what you end up with. Okay, and then lastly, and the reason it was changing that other color was because I didn't create a new what I should have done, actually I'll just do this. If you ever find that that happens to you and you end up doing the same, like 2 different areas on the same layer, but you meant to separate them because you're moving too fast, just be on that layer, go to your select tool, select that space or like the shape or whatever it is, and then you can 3-finger swipe down and then say cut and paste. So that's cutting it off of the current layer and putting it on a new layer. You might notice that it now is out of the lines. That's because the clipping mask broke, but you don't have to erase it. You can just go to that layer and say clipping mask. And because the one beneath it is clipping to this layer, it's also going to clip to that layer. So helpful tip. I'm gonna go to this one real quick and thicken that area. All right, once I have this done, I can go in and start to add shading and depth to that. And there's a different way I'm actually going to do this because I want to shade them all at once without having to worry about doing like different shades of green over and over and over. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to go to the first layer and then clipping mask on top of that. And then I'm going to go to black. And I'm going to select a new texture brush. So I could do powdery still, but I'm actually going to do a different one just to play with these brushes because they're so much fun. Look at this texture, you guys. Oh my gosh, I'm in love with this one. It's called Dirty Sponge. So I love it, love it, love it, love it. Basically, I'm going to go through, and because I'm on the layer, just, let's see, if I was to drag that up here, it would hit everything. So I want it to be just on this one for now. Whoops. Actually, no, it can be on all of them. Make it easier for everybody. Okay, so I'm going to bring that up, and you can see like it's buildable. I can build it more here and put more of that depth in there. And then I can bring a lot more of it to the right side. So basically the reason that I'm choosing these areas to shade is because on the right side, we already know the light source is coming from this direction. This is already shaded, so we want to shade it more. The reason this is because it's larger on the top, and so I'm assuming it's going to cast shadow. Also, it's sitting within the pot, so that's also going to add some shadow. And you can play with other ones too. Like the other one that I liked was the charcoal, I think. I know. I do like that one, but it's not the... Let's see, which one was it? Oh, it was the Scratch Me. So that looks like this. So it's more of a like a fuzzy one. So I'm going to add a little bit of that to the bottom here and to the side. Okay, so check it out. This is the magic. Ready? So you're going to go to that layer, and then you're going to press this little N, and this means that it's in a normal blend mode. I'm going to change it to multiply. So I'm going to pull that all the way down and have it be on multiply. You don't notice a difference yet, and that's because I haven't touched my opacity. When I drag my opacity down, look at this. The multiply effect makes it be like a complementary color to your work. So you can shade all over the place, and look at, let me show you what that looks like on the pot. If I was to do that with black, okay, so I have black, it's obviously black. But if I change it to multiply, multiply, then look at that. It's that darker terracotta color. So I wanted to show you both ways again, even though it's not necessary, but that's just one of those things that's going to help you in your workflow to see like what works best. I did not mean to make this mess up here. Whoops. Fun trick too, if you're on a brush, like let's say I was on my dirty sponge brush and I needed to erase something like this, if you hold your eraser down, then you can erase with the same type of brush, so it's not going to really split that up or anything. Okay, I know that's a lot of extras, but then I'm actually going to cheat and I'm going to multiply this, or duplicate, excuse me. It's going to create another layer, same opacity, but I can actually put that down even more, and then I'm going to select it with my arrow and bring it over to the right more, so it's mostly only affecting that bottom corner. That's just a cheat. I'll delete it actually and show you the other way. The other way is I could grab a different texture brush, like this frizzy brush. It's a lot more, I think it's a lot more, yeah. Like it's a lot more intense. And so that's more of like, I want to create a clipping mask. That's more of like one of those ones that you would use for one of those harsher shadows, which I'm totally into. I just also like this texture. So you could do that, multiply that blend mode, decrease the opacity, and see how that's just creating that just a little bit of a sharper edge for that shadow on top of the shadow. So it's really cool effect. I like it. I'm actually going to merge these two together because I'm happy with it. So merge down, there we go. So now it's all on one clipping mask there. So the next part of this is I want to make these shadowed and whatnot individually. Okay, so then I'm going to go in and create another clipping mask on top of the green area, and now I'm going to focus more on going actually inside of this color. Actually, I want to bring this one above the main green area because I'm only touching that because that's where my shadow is going to live. So I'm going to go back to black, or I could choose a darker green color. I'm going to go to, first one I use the powdery, and then I'm going to, oops, that's not powdery. There we go. And I'm going to use that inside here to make some depth. So I don't want to go crazy too much. I'm going to actually focus on the right side of each of those so that it also has dimension. And then I can go in, change it to multiply, and decrease that. I don't love the way that that looks, so I'm actually going to undo that, go back to normal, and I'm going to try recolor. This is one of those things, as you're experimenting and doing your workflow, you can change depending on how you're feeling about what things are looking like. So just as you can use the disc, you can also use colors in your palette to do samples. So I can see exactly what things are going to look like. Like, I like that a lot better, but let's try it deeper. Yeah, so I like that a lot better. So I'm going to take that off. It's recolored. Perfect. Okay, so now I want to do the highlights. And I can go lighter than this, but it's already pretty light, so I think I might add shading to it instead. So I'm just creating another layer on top, but I want to drag it on top of this layer, the lighter one that I'm doing. Sample that color, bring it over just slightly to get a deeper version of it. And then it's not on a... Okay. Get that in there. And then, do you want to clean this up a little bit? Whoops. With the ripple brush. Because I did not do all of my complicated layers that I usually do. So you can always just erase any excess that you don't want it to attack. Okay. And that actually, that color is blending a bit too much with the underneath side, so I'm going to select that for recolor and play with what I can do with that. Like, that would be better because it differentiates it more. I'm going to do that instead, and then I'll do this green color. Actually, this green color anyway is a little too light for me, so I think I could go to hue, so that's in your wand, hue, saturation, and then I can go brightness, or I could go the saturation itself, which I think that's what I want to do because I think I just didn't like how bright it was. And then this is going to be, or how vivid the color was, this is going to be a highlight area, so I do want to make sure it's lighter. Like, this looks better right there. But then I want to add the depth on the left, or on the right side of that, because that will show that it's going, you know, back in or whatever. You get what I'm saying, or whatever. It's not that, that's not the right term, but you get what I'm saying. Okay, so depth, that same one, and I'll clean that up in a minute. Or it actually looks pretty good like that. Maybe just a little bit deeper. There we go. Yeah, that looks good to me. And then what I can do instead is go in, create a new layer. I don't have to keep creating all these new layers, but go in instead on top of everything. So this is not a clipping mask. And I can grab, I'm going to use the rippleizer, and I'm going to pick the lightest color. And I'm actually just going to make that super small and just add those lines in so that they are emphasized more. And you can make this pretty big if you want to be really precise with it. And then as it gets down further, I am going to apply that depth again. Or what you could do is go to your eraser tool, go to Powdery, and then just have it kind of blend in. See how it blends into the bottom at that point? And then you don't have to worry about deepening those lines. So that makes a huge difference too. I think I do want to erase some of this. Just ignore me, this is my process. I'll just take that out of there. Okay, so that looks a lot better to me. So see how this is really turning into a very dimensional piece rather than being just straightforward. So I'm just going to do final details now. So I'm going to take a new layer, get like a white or close to white, and I'm just going to add, whoops, with the ripple brush but a little bit smaller, I'm just going to add some imperfect little points that the cactus would have coming off of it. And I'm just doing like 4 lines like this in each of these areas, or actually I want to do it only on the areas that are light. You can do it however you want to, it's an illustration. And then when it comes to the side here, I'm actually just going to choose like a little bit of a deeper color but have it be a little more beigey so you can see it better, like this, because otherwise it'll blend right into the white. And since it's on the side, I'm going to assume that some of the 4 are sticking on the other side instead of all together there. Maybe do 3 on a couple and then have a few peekabooing on this side. And then that's it. So now I can add details to the pot if I want to. I can play with the brightness on this, so I can go into the hue and brighten that up a lot more so it's more obvious and draws more attention. I can also create a background color, so I can go to my background and slap a pink on there, or instead of doing that, I can create a layer underneath everything and go to, oh, this is the part that's really fun actually, so yes, do this. The random crumbles, it's one of my favorite ways to add texture, so let me grab a color that will actually show up. If you grab like a complementary color or black or something, so see these crumbles, you can just kind of add splatter in some random areas like this. And then there's more crumbles here where they are larger, so you can kind of get it all over the place if you want to, and then use these ones as like more concentrated. And then you could also go like on different layers and play with that. But I love texture so much, so like this would also work really well on the pot. I'll just show you that real quick. I'll create another clipping mask on top of the pot itself, sample that color, get it a lot darker. So see how, clipping mask. So see how that's gonna look if I just add that texture in there, and then it totally changes the whole vibe of it. I just love it so much. So if this is helpful and you guys want to see more tutorials like this, be sure to turn on your notifications, but also I have linked these awesome brushes in the description below, so make sure to check that out, and I will see you guys next time.